All right. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this mini seminar series, which will be on writing a personal statement. My name is Zeribe Nwosu. So as you know, the Zeribe Nwosu Foundation focuses on education at all levels, and we are particularly interested in those topics that are not necessarily discussed very frequently in universities that we think are actually very important for people to succeed in their career. One of those will be something like how to prepare your application, how to write a personal statement, how to write a CV, how to contact a professor to ask questions about whether they have a position in their lab. These sort of questions are often learned in the process, and sometimes or many times the hard way. So people don't get equal level of mentorship on how to deal with them, and they just do and try, fail until they succeed. We believe it can be made easier by having this sort of seminar series. And that's why we do what we do in the Zeribe Nwosu Foundation. The purpose of this mini seminar today is to discuss how to write a personal statement. And this is because we have reviewed a couple of them, and I do find some fundamental problems in the way people write their personal statements. Sometimes people just go into telling stories that, in my opinion, are really irrelevant, though they are exciting, but they are not relevant to the application that they're making. And therefore, it makes it very difficult for them to convey their point, especially within the specific word limits that they may have in that application process. And so I just want to touch on some of the key things that you should have or consider putting in your personal statement. You don't have to mention all of them. And we have some of these things also listed on the form for submitting personal statement for review. And so when you want to write a personal statement, it's worthwhile to consider them. One, your education, an academic and stroke professional background. Where did you study? What did you study? Do not assume that they will just immediately go to your CV and know what you studied and operate with that. You can mention it in your personal statement and emphasize on it a bit. Mention your motivation or reason for applying for this position. Why do you want to study what you want to study? And there are multiple reasons. It could be because you want to get a certificate. It can be a reason, which is not so strong a reason, but it's a reason anyway. It can be because you want to build your skill set. It can be because you want to prepare yourself for another degree. For example, you're doing a master's so that you can get the skills to then proceed to PhD. It can be because there are specific jobs you are interested in and you have to have certain level of training, and this program you're applying for will offer you that training, etc. So there are multiple reasons. And so it is important for you to emphasize your motivation one way or the other in your personal statement. Technical skills. If you have technical skills that you bring to the table, for example, you have data analytics skills, programming skills, those very special skills are important and are the things that will set you apart from most other applicants or many other applicants. Unless if it's, for example, if you're applying for something that is in the IT space, then it is likely that everybody has some computer or IT skills. So that is not going to be the thing that will set you apart. But maybe then, if it is something in computational biology lab, you can tell them that you have IT skills, but you also have a master's in biology. It could be that those other people who are applying for that same position have IT skills, but they don't have the master's in biology experience that you're bringing. And that becomes something that will distinguish you from other applicants. So the goal here is to give yourself a competitive edge. That is why the personal statement is the best place for you to explain how you think you are worthy of what you're applying for. Past or current research projects. If you have done a project, you can emphasize it. And people don't understand that their thesis, their undergraduate thesis, for example, the master's thesis, is a project, it's a research project. So you don't need to publish in Nature to be able to emphasize the skills you got from your research. Just so your undergraduate has already a lot in it. It has writing, it has literature review, it has result analysis, it has presentation in it, it has discussion, it has referencing. You know, it has several components that you can emphasize to say, these are the things I have done. And so when you are getting me as a PhD student, you can already be sure that you are not going to be teaching me these things from the scratch. You are just going to be polishing me up. I have the skill set to be, because the truth is this, no professor will hold their hands to show you how to do referencing. I have not seen any professor that we have that kind of time to sit you down and say, come, see how we do referencing in this lab, or how we do referencing in Western world. Nobody will show you. You would have to figure that out yourself. So the more things you already come into the lab with, or the place you're applying to with, the easier it is for them to think, okay, we can now focus more on preparing you for the other very important components, rather than just holding your hand for everything. So emphasize what you already have as a skill set. If you have work experience, emphasize it. If you have volunteer experience, you emphasize it also, if you have the space to do that. And if it helps you, if you have volunteered in, let's say, a foundation X that may be doing some very exciting thing, but it's not relevant to what you're applying for, it may not necessarily be useful to mention that in your personal statement. It can be on your CV. And so therefore you can say, I can have volunteered in a number of organizations, including XYZ. That XYZ being the ones that you think are most relevant to what you're applying to. Personal circumstances that may have impacted your career growth. You don't include confidential information. And sometimes, for example, something like you lost your uncle or your father or mother. A lot of people have these kind of situations. I personally lost my father while I was still an undergraduate, and that had an impact. So a lot of people have these personal circumstances that may have derailed them or may have caused them to lose focus at some point in their career. It is important that if you think it may help you to stitch together your argument, you could mention it, but don't dwell on it in your personal statement to the extent that it seems like you are now looking for sympathy or trying to use it to make an excuse for maybe your mistakes in school. You can mention it in passing and rather mention how you were able to overcome the pressure and how you even performed better despite their circumstance. You can say that. And so be careful not to overuse it to the extent that it begins to sound like you are looking for an excuse to give. If you have leadership skills, experiences, and this can come from your work in school, in religious organizations, can come from other extracurricular activities. You started something, people are now growing it as evidence. It's an evidence that you started something that is useful. Mention it if there's a space for that. And then if you're applying to a school or to a prospective work plan, talk about why you chose that particular school, or institution. Let's say you are applying to University X. Again, I don't want to mention specific university to not make one sound like it's better than the other. Let's say you mentioned to University X. Why is that university important to you? It cannot be because you want to go to the US or to the UK. That cannot be a reason why you should apply to a university. It doesn't make sense. It could be that you have family members from that university that have gone there and they told you great things about that place. Universities want to hear that their alumni are going further to tell other people to apply to their schools. They want to hear it. So if somebody told you, an alumni or a friend or a mentor told you to apply to this university and gave you reasons, said you should go there because this is a great place, mention it in your application. For example, for some of you in the Telegram group, I have mentioned how great it was for me to go to Heidelberg. And I do so every time. If there's an opportunity in the University of Heidelberg, apply to it. It's a great university in Germany, right? If you're applying to the graduate program that I went through and mentioned that, you heard from Zeribe that this is a great place, and I did well in the graduate school for all intents and purposes, that is something that if those people who were there when I was there are still there, that is something that is going to resonate with them, because they're going to like to hear that the alumni has gone on to do, to some other places and do great things. And is actually happy with the service that he received or the training he received to be able to recommend someone else to come to that university. Because if the university was bad to me, I cannot tell you to go there. So for them, they see it as an evidence that they are actually doing good things. So therefore, feel free to mention it. If you have read something on Wikipedia about the school, if you have read about their, let's say, the way the alumni are successful, applying, getting some very top jobs in top institutions after graduation, mention it. And those are the things that sort of inspired you to choose that school. If it is the program that they're offering, mention it. But the reason I don't always like to mention the program aspect is that if it's something like Masters in Biomedical Science, several universities are offering that. And most of those universities have pretty standardized curriculum with several similar components. So it cannot be the main reason why you're actually applying to this university. People use that, but it's not a concrete reason, right? So you have to think about something else that is unique. It could be that, for example, that particular school, unlike other schools, this particular school, the Masters in Biomedical Science that they offer, does have an opportunity for you to stay in the hospital for 3 months and get on the ground lab experience. Therefore, that is a powerful reason that distinguishes this particular program from some other programs. It could be that faculty members in that particular school usually also offer, let's say, some time for you to do some project in the lab that becomes a potentially publishable data. And that is something that attracts you because you are given an opportunity to manage a project, even as a master's student, for example. That's an advantage. So what I'm saying is you have to look on the university's website and see specific reasons why you want to go to their school. And then if you have future plans and career goals, you can establish that as well in your personal statement. Now, you don't have to say all of these things. It depends on how your story has evolved. For example, if you have not volunteered, then you don't have volunteer experience to put. Then you can put emphasis on other aspects where you think you have information. If you have not actually done work, then you don't have work experience. But then you have to think that doing a research project is also some sort of work. You can highlight that as a potential work experience, right? If you have not really done a major leadership engagement, then you can skip that aspect. If other aspects of your personal statement are solid, nobody will reject your personal statement just because it did not mention your leadership experience or because it did not mention your volunteer experience. And so that is something to consider. In all, what I'm saying is keep the personal statement as straight to the point. If you have all of these things itemized in this way, and then look at the ones you have and try to fill the box for them and say something about them, you will see where you have more information. You see how you can balance it against the word limit you have, and then you will see that you will be on point and will not have so much time to start telling personal stories. Somebody said, for example, that they started thinking about being a medical doctor when they were 2 years. How can you say you wanted to be a medical doctor when you were 2 years? How does anybody? No child, that must be like a genius. Any child that can say in his 2 years that he wants to be a medical doctor will be a medical doctor by 12 years old, right? So you cannot say that. Don't say things that are not easy to verify. Nobody can prove that kind of statement, and therefore it's not useful in a personal statement. Statements that are unnecessarily ambiguous and that are boastful in nature also can come as a red flag in your personal statement, and therefore you want to avoid them. Even though it's a personal statement, be careful. Statements that come across to be overly selfish can be a problem. And this is something that is hard to, well, not necessarily hard, or if you think carefully, but people can fall into this trap of, because the statement is what I call an I or me or my statement, you tend to overplay your role. For example, when somebody says something like, in a class of 1,000 students, I was the only one who was able to pass a course. Everyone else failed. When you say something like that, it is hard for anybody to believe it. It could be true. If we want to really take it for what it is, then we have to have some verification, independent validation, maybe from your referee letter. So do not say things that are too complicated for anybody to understand. Even if they are true, be careful how you sell such narratives.